I want to thank you all for coming out. This program is going to be about, we're going to listen and learn and eat while we listen and learn. So feel welcome to go ahead and eat. I want to welcome Dr. Danny Twilley. I've had the opportunity to spend some time with him even previous today in other meetings. And we've got an incredible program we're going to find out about that will help us enhance our community. With that said, I want you to watch a short video here, and then I'm going to introduce Tamara, who I give credit for getting Dr. Twilley here. The city of Summersville extends a warm and hearty welcome to each of you. Whether you are a first-time or frequent visitor, we are thrilled to welcome you to our little piece of paradise. Our city proudly boasts the magnificent backdrop of beautiful mountains, the lure of Summersville Lake, which is the state's largest lake and newest addition to the state park system, Summersville Lake State Park. In the midst of this natural splendor, we wholeheartedly invite you to indulge in the marvels of our great outdoors, offering adventure, history, and relaxation. Experience Summersville. Now is the time. Welcome today. And now it's my honor to introduce our Executive Director of the Nicholas County Community Foundation, Tamara Mullins.
Thank you all for being here today. I'm going to keep this very brief as our time is limited, and I want everybody to hear everything that Dr. Twilley has to say. I'm really excited to be able to bring you Dr. Twilley here today. Dr. Danny Twilley is the Assistant Vice President of Economic, Community, and Asset Development for the Thrive and Elise Smith Outdoor Economic Development Collaborative. By utilizing West Virginia University's intellect and social capital, he focuses on the state's outdoor economy to make West Virginia a more desirable place to live, work, and play by leveraging the state's expansive outdoor recreation assets. I will turn the floor over now to Dr. Twilley to tell us more about his group's initiative. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Give me a brief second to set up my show here. The first test is how good I am at AB.
You're good.
All right. Well, I'm going to walk around a little bit. First and foremost, what a pleasure to be here, and thank you for sharing, spending your time with me and kind of walking through, this presentation and the opportunity that I see. So this is a couple times I've been here. Like I said, the mayor and I have been able to spend time together. I've visited the community. And so here today, when I was asked to come talk, I was asked to come talk about a few things. First is, what's the work that we do, but what's the opportunity that I see here in Summersville, as I fundamentally believe that we are in this pivotal moment in time for not only the future of West Virginia, but the opportunity for communities like Summersville, who I believe are so well positioned to take advantage of this opportunity. And so that's what I'm going to share with you about. But please don't just let me talk. If you have questions or ideas or thoughts or challenges to my thinking, let me know, because the only way I know to get better, to think differently, is by getting great questions and by having you all, have me and my team think differently. So I'll start with this. This idea here is that there are over 400 federal programs that focus on rural communities. There are 7 committees in the Senate and 7 committees in the House in the Feds that focus on rural communities. You can see that there are 93 rural exclusive communities, all right? And you can see kind of the spending from USDA. There's about $26 billion in guaranteed loans, $11 billion in direct loans, and there's about $2.6 billion that are allocated towards rural development. And so, yes, that's a lot of money, but there's a lot of rural communities. And so with all of that being said, is in 1954, I believe it was when the Small Business Administration was created at the federal government. 1965 was when the ARC was created. You had, at the same time that USDA, or the ARC was created, you had some other federal programs like the EDA Workforce program as well. In the mid-'80s, you had USDA Rural Development was established. So you've had a lot of investment in rural, and particularly in Appalachia, for a long period of time, coming from the federal government. And that old adage, I'm from the government, I'm here to help, right? So the question naturally becomes, for me, looking at this outside and in, are we better off today than we were in 1964? That's a question I'm happy to are we better off? In some ways, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely we are. But if you look at the data metrics that we're following right now, we are still at the bottom of the list in things like educational attainment, economic advancement, health, happiness. We are 50th in the country in happiness. When you look at population loss, we are 50th in the country. And so when you look at it, is even though we've had this tremendous federal investment, federal programs investing in rural areas and in Appalachia, are we advancing? The data would say no, we're not. Are we not getting worse? Probably. Are they providing a great backstop? So all of that being said, is the challenge is if we're going to sit here together and wait for the feds to come in and write us a check that's going to help change and transform our community, we're going to be having the same conversation 20 years from now when I'm old and getting ready to retire, and we're not going to be any better off. So the power of what we talk about is the collective power that's in this room. I guarantee you, with the knowledge, the resources, the skills that are present in this room, and those that are in this community, and those that are from this community, that may have left the area, left the state, we can potentially advance us to where we, or where you all want to be in the future. And so that's really the challenge I have, is that what opportunities, how can we advance our work to collective and reach our fullest potential? And I can tell you this, is that I love all of the programs that I just mentioned, but they are not going to save us. They are not going to advance West Virginia from the bottom of all the wrong lists. We will. And that's where Brad and Elise Smith saw the vision for what the OEDC would be. That's why they invested in us. They invested their resources, their name, and they gave us our name less than 6 months into the creation of our office at WVU. President Gordon Gee, I know he's been getting beat up a little bit, but the man truly cares. He could have retired, he could have left, he chose to stay, and he chose to make hard decisions. And part of what his vision was how do we support people to do this work to advance the state? And so all of that is kind of that collective idea of that our time is now. You hear both of them, both presidents, talk about our time is now, more so than ever. So I've been very fortunate. I've worked in Appalachia for almost 20 years. I'm from Maryland. I spent my 20s living out of the back of my truck, kind of recreating and playing, traveling the country, and traveling various parts of the world. And all of it was trying to understand what makes communities great. Why am I willing to spend my money and my time to go out to Colorado, to go to Utah, to go live in Oregon, to go to Idaho? Why am I willing to do that? Why did that happen? And so I want to share with you a couple case studies. And the mayor was telling me that back in 2007, was it? So yeah, sometime 2007, 8, he took a group from the local community to Asheville. So I started going to Asheville in the mid-90s, all right? And if you remember, for those who had went there, Western North Carolina, it's Appalachia. In the late 80s, and the video wouldn't play, so I apologize for that. But in the late 80s, there was a boarded up downtown. It was a ghost town. There weren't people were leaving, companies were leaving, people weren't living there, they weren't migrating there. And there was a gentleman who, and there's a great video, and I'm happy to share it with you afterwards, and you can distribute it to this group. But there was a gentleman who was traveling back. His family had made some money through insurance. And so he had stopped in Asheville, and I believe he was from Winston-Salem, and he said, oh my gosh, this place is beautiful, right? Look at the bottom corner of the picture. He's like, this place is amazing. Why is it boarded up, right? Why is it not a happening community? So he fundamentally believed in a livable downtown. They created this, the guy's name was Julian Price. You can watch this off of online for $4, or you can get it from the library and download it for free. But there was something called the Public Interest Project. And what they did is say, we want a livable downtown. And what they ended up doing was purchasing buildings and saying, well, we need people to live above downtown or close to downtown and need to have the shops below so they can spend. And so what they started doing is they would buy the buildings and then they would basically rent and or sell the space up top, and then they would use it to subsidize the retail below. And when in doing so, they went around and said, well, I think we need a local bookstore / coffee shop. So they went down to small bookstore owner and said, I want you to expand, and we're going to subsidize your expansion by basically giving you part of this space for free in order to grow. They knew they needed a local cafe, so they created the Laughing Seed Cafe. It's still there today. They knew they needed a local music venue. And what they basically said is that, yes, we can do property redevelopment, and at the same time make a profit, and at the same time have a community good. That story ended up playing out to where, Asheville continued to grow. They're dealing with some of the challenges of tourism right now. Let's own that. But because Asheville started doing well, Brevard, North Carolina started doing well. And then West Asheville, if anybody's ever been to West Asheville, if you went there 20 years ago or even 15 years ago, you would have probably, at night, you probably would have hesitated a little bit. But that's like a desirable place where all the young people are living because it's more affordable. Now you've got Hendersonville, and you've got Waynesville and Silva. So now the rising tide of that region is really elevating. And it's doing it actively. They just had a company come in and just invest about $6 billion into the future of kind of advanced manufacturing is really what it is in technology. So they're really reaping that kind of benefit, and they're starting to do some work throughout the entire region. We were very fortunate in our team to recruit one of their leaders who used to work for their CDFI. He's now working for us. I went and snagged him from down there and said, come help us. So he's part of our team as well. So then let's talk about another area. Let's talk about Northwest Arkansas. Has anybody ever heard of Bentonville? Right? So Bentonville is the home of Walmart. If anybody sees a Walmart truck, you'll see on it says home of Walmart. Anybody know the story of Bentonville? Oh, good. This is new knowledge. All right, I love it. All right. So Northwest Arkansas, home of Walmart. What do we know about Walmart?
Everywhere's in the area.
I love it. What do you know about Walmart?
They're everywhere.
They're everywhere. Yes, they are. They're the largest retailer, right? So they're a huge retailer. And what we know is that it was founded by a gentleman named Sam Walton. Started as a basic 5 and dime. Then he started expanding. He figured out some unique things. But as that company started to grow, so remember Arkansas, right? is a landlocked state really in the middle of nowhere. You used to always say you have to get lost to find Arkansas, right? So, you know, would you say, think about it like West Virginia. Some people are like, hold on, is that the western side of Virginia? Right? And so there's some similarities there. So they were dealing with rural, they were dealing with people migrating away. And what happened in Northwest Arkansas is as Walmart started to grow, they were needing to expand their talent pool. And so they were getting people from California, from San Francisco, Chicago, Houston, and New York to come work there. And they would stay because they could put Walmart on their resume and they were getting paid really well, but they wouldn't stay there. They would come there to work, but then they were leaving. And so Walmart had to make a very critical decision. They were thinking about and they were looking at moving their headquarters. And they were looking at places like Houston and Chicago and some other places. And this was when Sam, and as the story goes, Sam was still alive. He's like, no, this place invested in us, and we would not be here if it wasn't for this town, this community, and this state. We're going to try to figure out how to make this work. So the Walton Family Foundation, I don't want, like, they've done the investment. Don't think about their single source investment, but think about the strategy that they utilized, all right? They can invest in anything at all. The amount of time I've spent talking is tens of millions of dollars that they make through that foundation. They could invest in anything. If you told them lining every street with brick would transform their community, every street would be lined with brick. It didn't matter to them. They wanted to invest in something. So what did they invest in? They invested in people in their community. So they invested in art, right? They created crystal bridges. They invested in food, so they started doing food incubation work as well. They invested in outdoor recreation. They started building trails. These are the two grandsons. They both were kind of mountain bike riders and trails. They started building trail right up here. They started with about 5 to 7 miles, and they saw that it was working. And when it started working, then they started investing. And what their secret sauce is, they connected community to recreation, recreation to food, and they surrounded it all with art. And that became, now, that community took them about 13 years, so that's an important piece. Asheville, it took them about 22 years, if you look at the stats, to really kind of have that flywheel effect, really move. Northwest Arkansas, even with a pretty close to an open checkbook, still took 13 years. So this isn't an overnight thing. This is, you start with a strategy, you lean into it, and you are relentlessly direct about what you're doing and how you're doing it. And that's what they did. Now they are one of the fifth fastest growing areas in the entire country. They have one of the best places to live. They were ranked as the 4th best place to live. When they originally started this work, they were finding that people were moving there that were directly 1, 2, or 3 degrees separated from Walmart. Now they're finding people that are moving there that have no ties to Walmart or their associated companies, and they're there to start businesses and create innovation. And it started with that type of investment. They did the same thing. They went and bought properties and basically fixed them up and then incentivized them, would go to chefs that they like and say, well, hey, can you come to Northwest Arkansas and open up a restaurant because we know that people need food. This type of food, right? So they went, it wasn't hunting. They weren't out there just saying, it wasn't fishing, dropping a line in and hoping someone comes. They went out hunting. They said, I want you to be here, and this is what I need you to do. And you would say, well, this is what I need to come. Great, let's solve it. And so it was intentional. And I think that's the lesson that we learn from these types of communities and these types of effort. Again, they can invest in anything. The gentleman who helped transform, Julian Price, transform Asheville, could have pretty much invested in anything. And they invested in Main Street and recreational resources, and that's how they kind of began to transform their work. So the idea and the history of the OEDC, I won't spend a ton of time on it, but that idea, I've been studying these communities. I spent time out in Utah, Idaho. Pay attention to what's happening in Idaho right now. You'll hear me talk about Colorado and Utah. Why? Both landlocked states, historic mining states, and they basically began to transform. Skiing helped them. Skiing didn't save them. Remember, skiing almost died in the 80s and early 90s, so skiing didn't save them. Summer recreation actually saved a lot of those mountain towns. And they're rural. They're out in the middle of nowhere. Anybody ever try to get to Telluride? Anybody ever try to get to, yeah, exactly. Anybody ever try to get to Grand Junction, Gunnison and those communities? I mean, they're out there. They're 4 hours from everywhere. So it's not about rural, it's about intentionality, and that's what I'm here to try to help see how this works. So the history of the OEDC, this idea kind of transformed these 3 people. Yes, I'm one of them. Andy, we got from Western North Carolina. Rich Edwards, we got from IMBA. Were the Waltons and Bentonville used to hire us to come in and do trainings with them and for them, and said, hey, can you help teach other communities in Arkansas and throughout the region how to do this work? And now all 3 of us are here working in West Virginia. So we have the knowledge, we have the experience. Now we just need to build that momentum and build that trust. This trust is a huge thing in this work. So that's how it kind of started down in Bentonville in 2019, and by 2020, I got a call. I was in Southeast Ohio doing some work on a program, the Bailey's Trail System. I was working for Ohio University, and they asked me to come here and see if we could do something special here. So there's 2 areas of focus, and that's the outdoor economy and youth initiatives. I oversee the outdoor economy, but our goal is to address population loss through quality of life. And let me share with you why I believe population loss and brain drain are the #1 issues facing West Virginia today. When our talent leaves, our communities degrade, our intellectual and social capital erode, and there's a story of, if you're not willing to stay, why should I? And so for us, it's really about population loss. And so over the last 72 years, we've lost 12% of our population. It's about 230,000 people. 1950 was our highest population, just over 2 million. We actually went and found the original certificate of the census, and that's my North Star. I want to replenish the population to reach the level of vibrancy that we all know West Virginia had. Many of you in this room probably remember West Virginia's brighter days, and I think that we can bring it back. I really, truly do. So we saw that, we ranked 50th in population loss. So then we actually started studying brain drain as well, because we know that there's a death birth rate issue. We have more people dying than being born. That's actually a national trend right now, in terms of we're not replacing ourselves. But so we started looking at brain drain, and what we were finding is that 62% of WVU and Marshall graduates leave the state upon graduation. 90% of out-of-state students, when they come, they leave. And everyone, because that's a question we get, I'm just like, well, we have 4 years to convince them to stay, right? It's a 4-year tour. Like, we should be able to keep them here by providing them opportunity. In 2017, there was a brilliant study done basically about the net brain drain. And it's a fascinating work that was done by a congressional committee. And we performed, no matter how you slice that data, relative brain drain, we perform the worst in the entire country. So that basically what it was showing is those who can leave, based on educational attainment, were leaving. If they had the skill set, they were leaving the state. So there are some brighter stories coming though, is that here we actually started seeing more people move in than move out. We're still dealing with the age gap right now. But here's the interesting thing, and this is where we have some challenges. If you look, the outward bound, we have 23.8% from 18 to 34-year-olds leaving versus only 8% coming in. So we're losing our young people. The other place where we're seeing the 45 to 54-year-olds are actually coming in at a higher rate as well. I'm sorry, they're migrating out at the highest rate, but we're seeing people come back here to retire. And the interesting part is if our young people are leaving, 18 to 34-year-olds, more than they're coming in, and then our 45 to 54-year-olds, that number is so important because that's when people are in that mid-career. That's when they are hitting they're getting a lot of skill sets. They tend to have higher earning potentials. They tend to move into managerial roles. So we have to figure out how to keep that group here as well. And so that's kind of the work is here. Brad Smith says that the talent's here, the business is here. Or businesses are here. They'll start here, they'll be here. You see talent is replacing the tax incentive as the most important economic development decision out there. Housing is probably right there with it, so we'll talk a little bit about that as well. So why do I think this is the future for West Virginia? You have places like McKinsey & Company, one of the largest consulting firms in the world, basically started studying this trend because they're seeing a Western migration. And what they're finding is that Generation Xers and baby boomers, the generation born between 1980 and 2000 is outspending Generation Xers and baby boomers on things like travel, activity, and sport. Why does that matter? So think about that generation born between 1980 and 2000. They are either just graduating college, they are getting advanced degrees, they are early in their career, they're probably starting families. So they tend to not have money, and they typically don't have time, and they are outspending those that are in that Gen X and baby boomers who tend to have more disposable income. They might not have as much time because of where they are in their career, but they're definitely outspending baby boomers who tend to have more time and more money. And so what that's indicating is a value shift of what people think is important. You couple that with the 74% of Americans still fundamentally believe that home ownership is the anchor to the American dream. We, last year, the highest rate of home ownership, first-time home buyership, was age 36. It's the highest it's ever been since being recorded. So we know that people want to have travel activity, they want to enjoy life, but they want to be able to buy a home. And so we have some of those opportunities here. If we can help understand the housing issue and get some of that solved, and we can then lean into the quality of life that we all know you can have in this state based on our culture. Our Appalachian culture is so beautiful, it's brilliant. We know we can advance our outdoor recreation resources. We know we have great things like our music history. We know we have great things like our art community. We just have to elevate them and align them, and I think we have a great opportunity ahead of us. So, other great research out there. I remember I do geek out on research. It helps create the case. But what we also know is this was a group done by Headwaters Economics, and what they did is rate every county by either recreation-based county or non-recreation-based county. So it became a binary variable. You are either recreation-based or non-recreation-based. And then they classified these counties as rural, micropolitan, or metropolitan. And what they found was if you are a recreation county, whether you're rural, micropolitan, or metropolitan, you have a higher net migration rate. So that means more people are moving in than moving out. They then followed that up. Those who are moving in have a faster growing earnings per job, and they have a higher household income. So all that's saying is that if you have a recreation-based economy in your community, you have a higher likelihood of people moving in. You have a higher likelihood of people coming in with higher incomes. That means disposable incomes, so they can support small businesses in Main Street. And so that's really kind of that story, and I think that's important. There were only 3 counties in West Virginia that were recreation-based counties. So we've got some work to do. You throw that into the opportunity of, this is basically a stat that looks at the percentage of contribution over a 10-year period of the outdoor economy as it contributes to the overall state GDP. All right? That is a comparable metric that's done by the Bureau of Economic Analysis. West Virginia ranks 49th in the country.
Dr.
And,
Twilley, could you
yeah.
tell us who the 3 counties
Yeah,
are?
that's the discussion we're having over here.
Oh yeah, I can get it to you. I know one is, I don't think Fayette County is it. I don't think. If it was, now they haven't done it since the new national park designation or some of that, but if I remember correctly, I want to say it was Tucker County, Pocahontas County, and I'm not going to get the third one. I'll look it up and I'll get it to you though, absolutely. It'll take me just a minute to do so. So what this ultimately looks like is that we're 49th in the country, even in our outdoor economy, right? So I took this to John Deskins, he does a lot of our state economic forecasts, and I said, John, tell me what that means. And he was like, well, since the BA pulled the data, I don't think the data's wrong. He's like, either we're so darn good at this, we don't have an opportunity to make a difference. We can't grow that much more in this space, or we haven't leaned into it and ignited it yet. I said, so what do you think? He's like, Danny, it's definitely the latter. So that's the opportunity. At first I was like, oh my gosh, that's terrible. And then I sat on it for a little bit. I was like, oh my gosh, that's the opportunity. That's what's in front of us. So if you take everything I just laid out for you, that's our opportunity. That's what we have ahead of us. And other places have done this. We are not reinventing the wheel. We're just taking the best practices, and that's why I went and got Andy. That's why I went and got Rich Edwards. That's why I found someone. We got Corey Lilly to join our team, because we wanted to find people who know how to do this and can figure this out. And how do we apply those best practices nationally to West Virginia? And that's really what we're trying to do. So you layer all this in with places like Utah. There's a couple great things coming out of Utah right now. So they have something called the Silicon Slope. It's from Provo to Ogden. Utah right now is seeing the largest population growth in the entire country. There are, depending on which source you look at, they're one of the highest economically ranked states in the country right now. They surveyed the top 50 businesses, growing businesses in that Silicon Slope. So why are you here? They said, well, either as the owner of the company or C-suite, we want to be here. We can attract the talent from Silicon Valley and Seattle because it's cheaper to live here, or the talent's already here because they want to be ski bums and mountain bike bums and climbing bums, so they're already here, and then they're like, man, I want to eat, so how do I get a real job? And then they basically have a huge talent pool sitting in front of them, and that's kind of what's happening. And just a shout out to, if anybody is a WVU football fan, what BYU did and how they represented last week should be commended. And that's the type of people they are. And as my daughter and I were sitting there, I was like, man, that's West Virginia. We have that ability. We have what Utah can do. We can do it too. Our people are great. We're good. We're hard workers, and we've got beauty just like they do. So here's the flywheel effect, and this is where I start transitioning our work into kind of the ascend and talent attraction, because I know that's something we all want to talk about. But I want to share with you. We were with President D, and at the time, former dean of the business school, Javier Reyes, who's now president of UMass Amherst. And he's like, guys, totally understand what you want to do. I get it. I don't know how to tell you to get started. Brad Smith told us this day in Marshall before he was a president. Let's see if it works. Sure. Yeah, I did a great build-up and just totally. All right, let's see.
The second point I wanted to make is this notion of employees. I always, when I come back, someone says, well, when's your company going to open up more offices? Can you get PayPal to open up offices? Can you go to Adobe? Well, here's the secret. 25% of our employees that we pay can work from anywhere they want in the world. They're called remote employees. And there's another city that I've been learning from. I'm going to go visit in 3 weeks on a bus tour called Tulsa, Oklahoma. They created a program called Tulsa Remote, and what they did is they found out Generation Z and the millennials love outdoors. They love whitewater rapids, they love hiking, they love being out, they love being able to afford their homes and not have traffic for 3 hours. And so Tulsa said, we're going to start marketing to those people and have them come and live in Tulsa for 1 year, help them with their relocation, and we'll see if they stay. They thought they would get 100 people. They got 10,000 applicants. The average family that moved to Tulsa is $106,000. The tax base of Tulsa's gone up And these people are now starting to form friendships and start businesses in Tulsa. So we could get, and by the way,
So when he said Tulsa, Oklahoma, and outdoor rec, my question was, Tulsa, Oklahoma? Really? And then you couple that with, then I had to go look up what a remote worker was because I didn't know. This was 2000, early 2020. I mean, COVID hadn't taken hold yet, so we didn't really kind of know. So kind of looked up the definition, and that began this journey of the work that it has become the Bradley Smith OEDC. Funny story is that we kind of built out this idea of what Ascend would look like. It was called the West Virginia Remote Worker Program. At the time, we presented it to a former governor of Ohio and said, hey, can you tell us what you think? He's like, I love the outdoor economy. I think you all are spot on that. But this remote worker thing, you all are crazy. Who's going to pay for it? How are you going to fund it? Like, who's going to let workers do that? And of course, that was a Friday afternoon. And of course, I got hit in the gut with it. It was like, oh my gosh, like I thought it was a good thing. Then I went and cut my grass, and I finished, and I said, I think we're right. And we sent Brad a text that day and said, hey Brad, we'd love to run an idea by you. Can we get some of your time? He said, how about next Wednesday at 3 o'clock? So 5 days in a row, I didn't sleep. We reworked every number, every letter, and we presented to him. And partway through, before we even got to the remote worker idea, we were just sharing with him some of the data that we had. He took off his glasses, leaned forward, and said, this is the best idea I've heard about the future of West Virginia. You had me at hello. We get to the remote worker thing, we said, well, what didn't we get right about this? And then, of course, Brad, it's kind of serendipitous that he's now in education, because he sure as hell gave us a lot of homework, because he said, go learn this, tell me about this, find out about that. And so it began the journey. In 3 months from that first conversation is when him and Elise committed to giving us a chance to see if we can make this work. And that became the beginning of what became Ascend West Virginia. We quickly then partnered with the state, and what the state had us do during that time period was say, well, tell us the locations that that we should be looking at. So we ultimately ended up doing a bunch of different asset mapping. This is one of them. So what we did, we took whitewater, climbing, mountain biking, and skiing. If you want to be a skier, you should go to Colorado. But we actually, from the Mid-Atlantic, we have some good skiing here. We do. And so we looked at these because Ohio can't compete with this. Most of Pennsylvania can't compete with this. Parts of Virginia can't compete with our whitewater, our climbing, our mountain biking. And so we looked at the 30 minutes, 60 minutes, and 90 minutes away and said, what do we have? And we started comparing this to Asheville. We started comparing it to Boulder. We started comparing it to Boise. And we wanted to know if we could compete with our outdoor recreation resources. Could we market this and say we've got something valuable, rare, and hard to imitate? And if we did, then we knew we could lean into it. And this is basically what we found. This is the Morgantown, Lewisburg, Martinsburg, Elkins, and the New River Gorge area. Those are our Ascend communities. And what we found was very quickly, we had something that was special. We had to lean into it and started getting people to take advantage of it. So if you take a look at this, we then started saying, remember you heard Brad talk about business startups? So then I said, okay, well, let's take a look at business startups in Utah and Colorado. And what you can see, and this line tracks population trends very, very closely. And so as more people were moving in, they started seeing more businesses start than exit, right? And that's the best stat we knew to collect that data. What you see in West Virginia, we have more exits than entries into businesses. So we have more businesses closing than opening right now. And so, we took a look at that. Then we started looking at the tech employees because he was asking questions about tech employees. And so what we did is compare West Virginia's net tech employment to Colorado and Utah. So all of a sudden we started making this case that if we can attract people here, that we can start businesses, they can work in tech, and that we can start addressing some of the historic challenges that we've had over the last 72 years. And that became our value proposition. So then it said, well, what do we have that's going to attract people here that other places don't have? And that's when we said our outdoor recreation resources. And then you couple that in, which I'll share with you in just a little bit, then we started looking at our communities. And we said, well, what does our communities have? So we started looking at livability. That's like housing, education, healthcare. We started looking at vibrancy. That's our downtowns, that's our main streets, that's our local restaurants, local art, local music. We started looking at all that, and we looked at 18 different communities across the state of West Virginia in order to make these decisions. So our approach in this work, and I will say this, is that we have to continue to develop high quality rec infrastructure. Though we do have great outdoor recreation resources, other states are investing in this. You just saw Pennsylvania announce over $100 million investment in outdoor recreation resources. Virginia last year, about a year and a half ago, did just over $100 million. You see the investments that places like Colorado, Utah, Arkansas are making in this. So we have a great canvas, but we do have to invest in it. And we fundamentally believe investing in high quality, accessible infrastructure. That's the key thing. We built destinations away from people. I love Pocahontas County. I love Snowshoe, but it's hard to get to, right? That works if you have means and interest, right? So you have to have money, and you have to have time, and you have to have interest to go do that. But if we can bring it closer to where people live, where they can do it after work, during their lunch break, before work, on the weekends, that is the secret sauce that's of the West, and Arkansas has figured out. And now, Western North Carolina is like, oh, Chattanooga. You should see what they're doing down there. You should see what they're doing in Knoxville with the urban wilderness. The competition in this space is not getting any less. It's actually getting more, and it's getting more competitive. So we've got to invest in high quality infrastructure, we've got to activate it, and then we've got to promote it. I'm not going to bore you with all the stuff we do. Just know that we've got a great and talented team that can help do this work. We went out and found them. We went out and hunted and said, come here and help us do this in West Virginia. Because if we can do it in West Virginia, it's going to be the test case for the rest of the country. Know that there's 4 areas of impact. There's tremendous economic development opportunities. They actually recently did a follow-up survey for tech workers, and what they found was it's the largest sector, growth sector in Utah, and they said 79% of Utah tech worker transplants, so they are new to Utah, moved it. When they asked them, why did you move here? Outdoor recreation was the #1 reason. They asked those who had come back, so natives who have left and come back, 82% of them said outdoor recreation was the main reason that they chose to move back. Ladies and gentlemen, the data's there. Other states are showing this. We can do it too. We just can. So talent attraction. I was just talking about this. This is what we did. This is what we looked at. We did over 40,000 lines of data to understand where our communities are. That's why we believe in people and community-centered economic development. That's what we want to do. We want to help inspire and support communities, investing in the people that live there, the people that will move there, and the community in and of itself. So this is a partnership with West Virginia Tourism. I do give a lot of support to Secretary Ruby. She's been really instrumental in our work. WVU has given me a lot of freedom to be able to try to figure this out, and Brad and Lee Smith and their investment into us. So here's the offer. For those who don't know, and that's why I want to walk this through, and Frank, make sure, I just wanted to appreciate you for saying, hey, don't forget to talk about what this is, because not everyone knows. Like, not everyone knows what this is. So that's always important. Sometimes I forget. So what we are doing, we're offering $12,000 starting this new year. They can get it if they purchase a home. They'll be able to get it up front. They'll get all the money up front if they purchase a home. If not, they'll get monthly installments over 24 months is what they'll get. But here's the interesting thing, and I just want to share this. When we're interviewing people, when we're talking to people, they do not talk about the $12,000. The average income for these individuals is $107,000. They're not coming here because we're giving them money. just put that away. They care, right? Because, it's money that they get, but it's not their driver. If anybody's new, $12,000 isn't worth it at all. So it is not the driving force. They don't talk about it. A couple of them want it because it helps them buy a house. Right now, we're seeing 46% of all of our participants purchase homes. I fundamentally believe it would be around 55 to 60% if our housing stock was better. So if anybody has interest in doing housing development and has that skill set, knowledge base, or just crazy enough to learn together, let's have a conversation, because I think that's the fundamental growth opportunity for our state. People at the high end can purchase into that market. There's a lot of support for workforce housing, though we need to continue. It's that mid-market unit. What we're hearing from our senders when they're looking in between that 250 and 450 is that sweet spot for them that they'll purchase a home. And that's actually the big gap in our housing market in the state. So anybody crazy enough and want to learn, I guarantee you I'll be at the table with you and we'll try to figure it out together. So they get a free year of outdoor recreation. They get free outdoor gear rentals. They get access to a co-working space. That is going to be in Fayetteville. It will be in the old elementary school, and the gym is where that will be. They'll have access to that. That will be open to the ascenders. That will be open to their partners. It will also be open to community members as well who want to take advantage of that opportunity. And then there's opportunity for professional development as well. So we do trainings and support for our remote workers as well. The other thing I want to mention is the living boundary is fully encapsulates Summersville. So our individuals can live in Summersville, they can live in Fayetteville, they can live in Oak Hill, they can live in Beckley. Anybody here from Beckley? Because I don't want to get run out the room. All right. Oh, you can come here. So if you look at the distance between here and Beckley, between Fayetteville and Beckley and here in Fayetteville, this is where I believe the opportunity is for Summersville, is I think you can get a lot of people that will choose to live in Summersville versus Beckley and Fayetteville. And here's why, because you've got this Great Lake. It's amazing. I used to, when I lived in Ohio, we used to bring military teens, or teens of military families to Summersville and run a week-long program every year for years, because you had kayaking, you had stand-up paddleboarding, you had the rivers here, you had the climbing here, and now we're working on some good mountain biking here. We also are building some trails with our new state park. So point is like you're going to have something very special. I think we do need to figure out some of the housing. I think we do need to figure out our Main Street. I drove it today. That is perfectly positioned, my friends, to take advantage of some of this. Getting local art, local food in here, I think we do have a chance. So they can live here. So your opportunity here, because that was what I was asked. They're like, Danny, you're going to get the question of how does Summersville take advantage of this? If you all had a co-working space or a place that they could work out of, they can work out of it. We don't force them to come into Fayetteville to work at the co-work or in any of our co-working. They can work from home. They can work from a coffee shop. They can work. If you all had a place that you wanted them to work and live out of, we'd absolutely support that. We know how to do it. We're getting really good at it, so we can help you with that. So all of that being said, your opportunity is to figure out how to get these people who want to already be in West Virginia, who are choosing, because they can choose one of 5 locations. That's the cool part. They can choose any one of those locations: Morgantown, Elkins, Greenbrier Valley, Eastern Panhandle. They are choosing the New River Gorge. So you have them at the doorstep. You just need to figure out a way to say, we'll work with you to say, here's the opportunity to live and work and play in Summersville. And I can tell you, we have people living up to 30 minutes away from where our anchor location is, and they're doing it all the time. We have people living in Roncevert, in Greenbrier Valley. We have someone actually just kind of probably about 20 minutes from here bought a farm. that's what they wanted to do. They said, I came to West Virginia to kind of live a simpler life, and they work from home, and that's what they've done. So that's the opportunity that I see for Summersville, is to get them to live here, work here. Here's a couple other things I want to share with you about these people. 86% of them are non-natives. So far, we have about 300 new residents. We will be at 200 new ascenders here by the end of the year, and then that's about 20% of our goal, and we're starting to scale up quickly. They tend to be highly educated. They work for a variety of industries. They have a relatively high average salary, so that means they can spend and support local businesses. We have a really robust Slack channel and community, and here's the interesting part of what they do. If you open a new business, they go right on the Slack and they'll say, hey, who wants to go to this cereal shop, right? Or the cereal bar or something like that in Morgantown. 20 of them will show up. That we brought in two musicians, just moved to the Eastern Panhandle, and they put on a free concert at Shepherd University, and the whole community came out, not the whole community, but you get my point. A lot of people came out and supported them, and were appreciative of what they are bringing to the town. So these people give. The other thing I want you to know is, so far, these individuals have engaged in over 890 different community-based or outdoor-based activities. So that means once a week we host and we organize an outdoor activity. It could be a hike, it could be a rail trail ride, it could be a run, it could be a visit to the Arboretum, you name it. They do a social activity. That could be a trivia night to a meet and greet at a local establishment. Once a quarter, we've been doing a large-scale volunteer event. These individuals raised $5,000 for a local women's leadership program. They are here to give and serve. These are the people you want in your community. They are not coming here to extract. They're here to give and contribute, and that we're screening for that. That's the number one way that people will get into the program, if they talk about how they serve others. That's what we do. Here's the economics of it, for anybody who wants to geek out on it. If we retain just 50% of these individuals year over year, you're going to see about $365 million in economic impact with an additional 1,000 jobs created. If we can manage to get 75%, we're going to create an additional 1,700 jobs. So there's a downstream effect to this program that I don't know if we're ever going to be able to capture as part of it. So, I've only got a few minutes left, but I do want to honor this program. This program came to us from a gentleman who said, great, I'm so happy for Ascend, appreciate what you're doing, but what are you doing for West Virginians like me, who graduated from the state and had to leave in order to have an opportunity? And first I was kind of angry. I was like, man, what's this guy doing, just yelling at us over it, right? But we actually became really good friends, and he was right. And what we were attempting to do was fill the bathtub. That's what Ascend is, bringing talent home or bringing talent here. But what it didn't address is the brain drain, and the data shows that that's an issue. So what we did is create a program called First Ascent. For anybody who was at the Business Summit, was when we officially launched it, is that the goal is starting with Marshall and WVU graduates. If they graduate in up to a year, secret, we're going to move it to 2 years. After they graduate, they can apply to the program and come back here, or as they're graduating. So if you're a business leader, business owner, we will help you become more remote worker and remote friendly. You're seeing a lot of major companies do this. And that's what we want to do, is attract or help them stay here. If they want to leave, no problem. We'll celebrate them and we'll find a way to welcome them home. But if they want to stay, we want to create a pathway for them to stay. And that's what this program is all about. So we just launched it. It's going to be a little bit harder to get students' attention. They're inundated with information. But our goal is to do 1,000 students to keep them in the state as well. They pretty much get everything that the Ascenders get. A couple of key differences: they can work for West Virginia companies. They can be entrepreneurs, so if they want to start a small business or grow their business, they can do it. They don't get the money. We haven't figured that out yet. We're still working on it. but they do get mentorship and success coaching in order to help them find a job in this space. So again, it won't have as much of an economic impact just because they don't make as much money as some of these other more experienced employees do. But that's really what we're trying to do. The other thing I want you all to be aware of with the Ascend program, we're creating new verticals such as Military Ascend. We produce more veterans than any other state, and we have the lowest return rate. And so veterans are built on the ideas of community, purpose, and service. And so how do we help support and bring them home to serve and to be part of our communities? And this is being led by General Hoyer. He is a dear friend and is pushing us to address this. And so we're also going to work on our entrepreneurship, our return home. We're going to build out other verticals as we continue to grow and learn. I'm going to stop there, but here's where we're headed. Our team right now is working on various projects throughout the state as it would relate to outdoor recreation infrastructure. We're working on several with John right now and the work in his region. We're working at Capon State Park. We have about $20 million in various forms, whether we're leading or supporting by providing technical assistance to outdoor recreation infrastructure projects throughout the state that are active right now and today. So we're putting kind of our proverbial money where their mouth is by providing technical expertise to help communities get that outdoor recreation as well. We're starting to form partnerships with groups that are really leaning into the arts. We haven't addressed the restaurant thing. We have a few ideas we're incubating around how do we make sure we elevate our current culinary culture and advance our culinary culture in this state. And so we're starting to think about that as well. And we're doing a lot around community development as well. So when Andy, we just got some funding to support the CORE initiative, it's community outdoor recreation. And it's really about helping our businesses connect to each other and have a voice. And it's also about helping our local volunteer-based nonprofits and trail and outdoor advocacy groups have technical support for longevity and sustainability. So that's what we're working on. We're working in about 33 counties out of the 55. Brad and Elise said, Danny, don't go to sleep until you guys figure out how to work in all 55 counties. I think they literally meant that. So our goal is to be able to support and help all 55 counties in some way. So you've heard me ramble and talk, and I hope there are some threads in there, but I'm wide open to questions. No questions off the limits for me. So I'm here to help you all realize and see the potential that I see in this community. So, what do you have for me? Don't tell me I did that good. I got all the questions answered. The data was so good.
I think our biggest problem with remote workers is our internet.
It is not the issue you think it is. I'll just tell you. It is not the issue you think it is.
The biggest complaint.
It's maybe you see it different than I do, but when I first started this work, it was broadband, broadband, broadband. Now we're seeing it, housing. We have people living in the middle of nowhere in our communities, and none of them have said, man, I regret moving here because I don't have good internet. So what we do in order to help them is we link them via our system to, there is a great database now that tells you what your broadband access is by address. And so we tell them this is what you need to be a functional remote worker. So if you need broadband, don't buy the house or don't rent the house if it is. So we're empowering them to make that choice. And so what we're seeing in local communities, specifically around geographic proximity, that is not a question that they are, or a challenge that they're bringing up to us at all.
I want to stress that is overplayed for the remote workers. And
Yeah.
let me explain what I'm saying. Broadband is an issue for the broad masses. Affordable broadband is an issue for what I call the broad masses. When you bring in a remote worker at the salaries that they're at, they'll spend whatever it takes to get Starlink, to get directional antennas on their house. And I know this firsthand because my son moved from California, bought a house in a community where the houses were all $500,000 to $1.2 million. And then they discovered there was no significant broadband. There wasn't broadband. But it was solved in a matter of a week or 10 days if you'll spend $400 or $500, some cost for the right satellite dishes and so forth.
Yeah.
It's solved.
Thank you. Yeah, we're just not hearing it. We're
That's not the issue. It's the issue for affordable for the existing residents, but not for the remote workers.
Yeah, yeah, and there's a lot that I've been a part of the broadband group at the state. We're actually ahead of a lot of states right now in how we're going to solve broadband, and there's some really smart, talented people working on it, and I think we're going to figure out the last mile problem. Maybe not shortly in economic development terms. How's that?
So Danny, when you referenced earlier, when you were talking about the housing market, I think we do have a housing crisis here.
Yep.
But when you were talking about the price of houses, you know, the housing market that you say these folks are coming into, I don't think we have that's not our middle market. That's our upper market.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I don't know that from the perspective of that program, that those people will have as much problem. I mean, that's our upper market, not middle market. Well, we have, where I think our real crisis is the middle market of housing.
Yeah, I mean, I give you that number based on what our survey, because we're surveying them, is that what we're seeing. But even, I'll just share with you, is that they're still struggling to find good quality housing in that 250 to 450 range. They look at it and they're like, hold on, you want us to spend that much on that? So I'm happy to learn more about where your market is, and if
I just take my neighborhood, for example. You can throw a hard baseball from my house to 3 houses in that market that are on for sale right now.
We are struggling in many places for them to find those houses in that range right now. So I think that's going to be interesting. I think the lower that quality is, and so if you can bring in people from that 150 to 250 market as well, I think you're going to continue to have more and more people be attracted to Summersville. And I think that's something that we can work with you all on to kind of promote as your strategic advantage over other areas. If we can find that 150 to 250
Question,
or 250 to 5.
if 50% are buyers,
Yeah.
does that implies the other 50% are renters?
Yeah.
And in the greater Morgantown area, there's lots of rental opportunities. Here, there aren't.
Yeah. Yeah, you're spot on, and it's 46% is the exact stat that we have that are purchasing, and we know that some people are in active purchasing as well. So yeah, the rental market, that's the great part. If I'm sitting there as like someone who has the fortitude to do this type of thing, is like you could do the rental and the for sale, and you're going to have people that are going to take advantage of it. You just will. And so that's important too. You have to have that rental. And the interesting part is they are asking for higher quality rentals. They don't want to be in student rentals, particularly in Morgantown. They don't want to be in student rentals in Morgantown. So we've actually had to go, I think Paris on our team, and I'll brag on them, probably met with 30 different landlords to try to like screen out the student rental market from the professional rental market in order to have it. Because that was the number one thing. We don't want to live in student housing. And we're like, yeah, we don't want you to live there either. You can have a really good time. But that's probably not what you want. So you're spot on. The market's there for, I think, both rental. And I do want to share with you all this. What we're targeting here is about 150 in the region, up to 200 in the region, people to move in. Now that can vary based on capacity. So if we're finding that they can't get rentals or they can't get houses, then we will back off on that. If we find that you all have housing and have availability of it, we can accelerate that. But we will not grow faster than the community capacity can handle.
Can I clarify one thing he's saying there? When you say 100, you're talking about 100 as units, family units.
Family units.
That can easily be 2 people, or it could be 2.2, 2.3 because they have kids.
It's 1.8 per is on average. So you're right. Sometimes it's individual, sometimes. So that's why we're pretty much saying double. So if we're bringing 150, we're going to have their kids come in or significant others. And oftentimes the partners are more talented than the person we recruited. Very much so. So I think that's going to, and that's not counting first ascent. First ascent, as we start, lifting that up, we will. I'm getting the time button. I'm not getting in trouble here today. So, but I do just want to share, just first of all, thank you for spending time with me today, listening. If you want, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to set up a meeting with you via Zoom. I'll stay around for just a few minutes if we have time to answer any questions. But just know that I thank you for your time, listening, and let me know how we can support you all. So thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming today. I really appreciate you taking your time out to learn about the program, and I think it's an exciting prospect for us. The folks who are supposed to get on the bus, if you can run to the restroom real quick if you need to, and then if you'll go ahead out and board the bus, you know who you are. Everybody else, thank you so much, and I will contact information. If anybody would like Dr. Twilley's contact information, I'd be glad to provide that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you all.